Good morning, magandang umaga, bayan. Welcome to the program agenda. Today is November 23, 2022. It's a Wednesday, the middle of the week, and we are carrying on with our commitment to bring you the latest information, give you the best resources as far as topics go, and of course, inspire you in the way you live life. And we do hope that all goes well for you today. Now, we thank you for those of you who are subscribers of Cignal TV. Maraming salamat po. Taos-puso po akong nagpapasalamat sa inyo that you are joining us this morning. Thank you for being subscribers. And of course, to our friends, our viewers who catch us via Facebook abroad, who watch us on facebook.com/OneNews, and of course, those who also follow us via YouTube. That means a lot to us because may effort kayo, as they say. Now, let's move on with our program with our daily starter. And this one was provided by my dearest wife, Karen. It is from author Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland. And he wrote, "The secret, Alice, is to surround yourself with people who make your heart smile. It's then and only then that you'll find Wonderland." Okay, and po, that's very correct because you may live in a castle. Kung surrounded ka naman ng puro aso lang. I know people who live in beautiful condos and all they have are cats or dogs. You may have a great farm, but you're all by yourself or surrounded by unhappy people. It's not going to be Wonderland. So yun po, find people who make your heart smile. Let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star, November 23, 2022, and the headline is a quote from U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris: "Arbitral ruling must be respected. U.S. or United States commits aid in Philippine maritime enforcement." While visiting Puerto Princesa, as you may see in that photo, the U.S. Vice President spoke with women sorting and cleaning fish in Tagburos Village. She also boarded a vessel of the Philippine Coast Guard, during which she declared the United States commitment to support the Philippines regarding the arbitral ruling of the court in The Hague, and where she also announced that $7.5 million of aid will be given to the Philippines for maritime law enforcement. Excuse me. Let's go to the top of the front page. Related story: Philippines to protest China's seizure of debris near Pag-asa. The National Security Advisor, Clarita Carlos, has advised President Bongbong Marcos to go ahead and authorize a filing of a diplomatic protest with China concerning the forcible confiscation or taking of debris, of rocket debris, which the Philippine Navy claims was done by the Chinese Coast Guard. Ayun po, kumbaga they have a difference of opinion. The Chinese claim they did it nicely. The Philippines claim they did it forcibly. And to talk about force, the Saudi Arabian football team showed force when they shocked Argentina by beating them in a score of a second goal score during the Qatar 2022 World Cup Group C football match between Argentina and Saudi Arabia at the Lusail Stadium in north of Doha. Yan po, si Lionel Messi natulala. Okay? Had a shock of his life when the Saudi Arabians beat them at the game that they are supposed to be the masters at. Okay. And to the other side of the front page, also shocking is the story of the 5.6 magnitude earthquake that hit Cianjur in in West Java, Indonesia, where 268 at the moment have reportedly been killed. Not many people are still missing there in Cianjur, West Java, Indonesia. We pray for the families that have been affected, who have lost loved ones. We pray that the Indonesian government will be able to assist them immediately. Yan po, that is a reminder to all of us in this region that earthquakes, okay, will cause damage and will kill people. Here in the Philippines, we have become so used to earthquakes, but we have not been subjected to that kind of destruction. So let's continue praying for God's protection. And when there's an earthquake, get out of the house or the building. Okay. Meanwhile, BBM wants government agencies to adopt FEMA best practices. Okay. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. wants the best practices of the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, copied so that the Philippine government can quickly respond when disaster strikes. During a meeting with officials of the Office of the Civil Defense at Malacanang. Ayan po, no? But just to stress on a point, generally, more often than not, Philippine forces, authorities are able to respond faster and better, even with much less than what the United States has. Kasi doon nga po sa ilang tornado nila, nagmukha silang ape compared to the Philippines that is has advanced deployment, better communication. Ang delay lang talaga, bureaucracy. Okay. Meanwhile, justice still elusive for Maguindanao massacre victim. Okay? Despite the partial convictions handed down in 2019, justice still seems so far away for the family of photojournalist Reynaldo Bebot Momay, who is considered the 58th victim in the Maguindanao massacre that happened 13 years ago. Because according to authorities and court proceedings, his body was never found, and if there is no body or cadaver, then there is no victim, or at least that's what they say. Ang problema po, sabi ng mga iba, they claim that the dentures o postizo of Momay was actually found in the area, and there were witnesses who said that he was with the party that was stopped and attacked and buried in Maguindanao. Okay, so yan po. And for those of you who may have been his victims, and I know there are some victims in the Philippines, You will, I don't know if you should rejoice in the misery of others, but justice may have been served. Former Phil-Am actor who once competed in the national decathlon team, Bunivax, gets 17 years for cannabis vape fraud. Apparently, Mr. Bunivax, David Joseph Bunivax, went on a business deal or solicited investors in America for a cannabis vape business project and ended up scamming them 35 million dollars. $35 million lang naman with the phony scheme. So Bunivax has been sentenced to 17 years in prison in a federal prison and ordered to pay 35.2 million in restitution. Ayan na po. So ang tanong, saan niya kukunin yung pambalik pera? Ubus-ubus siya. Okay. Meanwhile, Pitmaster Foundation of Charlie Atong Ang wins Stevie Award for COVID initiatives. Okay. So, yan po, kinilala yung kanilang mga ambulance and kanilang mga, dialysis, etc. DTI issues Noche Buena Price Guide. Ayan na, ito na, umpisa na po. The beginning of Christmas is upon us. As the Christmas season draws near, the Department of Trade and Industry has issued a price guide to help consumers in buying Noche Buena products. Okay, pag-uusapan natin yan if that still helps, because malamang at malamang sabihan kayo ng tindera, doon ka sa DTI bumili. Yun po. Okay. Last but not the least, Austrian Ambassador Johann Brigger and Commercial Counselor of the Embassy, Christina Steiber, present Senator Cynthia Villar the Certificate of Honor for the Energy Globe, the World Award for Environmental and Sustainability for the Senators Sipag Las Piñas Kitchen Waste Composting Project. Ayan na po. Okay? So that about wraps up our reading of the front page of the Philippine Star. And now we go to the introduction. Pero bago po yan, pag-uusapan natin, give a listen kasi maraming nangyayari. There's a lot of things happening or not happening regarding Philippine agriculture. And if you eat food, if you buy food, if you buy agricultural product, you should listen because we want to give you indigestion. Pinapatawa ko na lang po kayo. At least, kumbaga, meron may iwan sa tiyan nyo. Hindi kayo natunawan. Okay, let's roll out the Betamax Gab to introduce our guest for today.
Fermin Adriano was the Agriculture Department's Undersecretary for Policy, Planning, and Research. He was also Information Director of the UP System and Vice Chancellor of UP Los Baños. Adriano also writes a weekly column for the Manila Times regarding the state of agriculture in the country.
Okay, fellow columnist Fermin, hindi na kita tatawaging Sir at Yusek, ha? Kasi hindi ka na official ngayon. Good morning.
Good morning, Cito, at good morning to your viewers. It's nice to hear to be called by the first name rather than the title.
Well, that's nice. And it's nice to know that you apparently are my neighbor in the region or at least in the Calabar zone. Tiga Los Baños ka pala. Isang sakay lang, nandito ka na sa Lipa.
Yeah. It's about 45 minutes away.
Okay.
Shortcut.
So, Fermin, let's talk about agriculture. Or sabi ko nga, there are a lot of things happening and not happening. You were formerly with the Department of Agriculture, And by the time you left, I think it's safe to say na you got out in time kasi parang mukhang magkakasisihan na regarding food crisis. You write a column for the Manila Times and many columnists have been focusing for the first time in a very long time. Many columnists, different newspapers have targeted agriculture, not because of BBM, but because of what they say or what we say is a food crisis. Could you substantiate that, Fermin?
Yeah, we saw that coming kasi because of the COVID-19 during the outbreak of the height of the outbreak of the COVID-19. There was a lot of bottlenecks in terms not only at the farm level because the farmers or workers cannot work on their farms, not only in the Philippines but elsewhere. So that's one area na may problema. And then you have a problem of what we call logistics, yung pagdadala from transporting all of these commodities, particularly globally, because of the congestion in the port, because you don't have people manning the port. So that was already a major problem during that time, which we tried to address. And then after that, it was followed immediately with the outbreak of, you were victimized by this yung African swine fever, di ba? Which practically wiped out about 1/4 of our hogs in the country. And then there was also the Taal problem, and then eventually the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And we are affected not because we have a lot of trade with these countries, but because these are major producers, particularly, for example, for Russia, of oil products. About 18% of the global supply comes from Russia. And then yung wheat, about 20%, something like that, combined, Ukraine and Russia, they are the big wheat basket of the world. So because of the embargo against Russia and Ukraine cannot export their wheat, corn, and soy, and other agricultural commodities, it affected the global supply of all these commodities. Kaya tumaas lahat yung presyo.
Yeah.
So yun yung mga external factors that that contributed to the so-called looming food crisis. And it's not only us that are telling the world that there's going to be a food crisis. It's most of the experts in the world, from reputable international institutions, from UN, FAO, World Bank, ADB, etc. They've been warning about it because they know that the poorest or the poor countries will be highly affected, particularly in Africa and some parts in Southeast Asia.
Okay, you used the term external influences, but people are now looking to the government to do something. I think everyone is being fair, being open-minded, being rational, and recognizing everything you mentioned. Kumbaga, tanggap na nilang lahat yan at naintindihan nila. However, recently I wrote in my column in the Philippine Star what a congressman who is very much invested in agriculture, he has poultry, he has piggery, even before he became a congressman, talagang nasa agriculture na siya. And what he said really caught my attention. He said, while the Filipinos appreciate and understand the circumstance, the President, as the Secretary of Agriculture, should not abuse the courtesy we extend to him in terms of being patient, of being, understanding of the circumstance. Hindi niya dapat abusuhin yung aming pagtitimpi, to quote it.
Yeah, right. Actually, as early as the outbreak of COVID in one of our management committee in the Department of Agriculture, I already argued with my colleagues na, COVID did not cause this problem of the agricultural sector. It just magnified the problems of the agricultural sector because of the accumulated neglect of the sector for so many years. Kasi pag tinignan mo pa lang yung budget, compared to other Southeast Asian countries which have more progressive agricultural sector, ang baba ng budget natin from 2000 to 2021 is not about 2% of our national budget. Samantalang yung iba, they're giving 5, 7, etc., etc. So that's an accumulated neglect of the agricultural sector. The second one is that if you look at the capacity of the institution itself, there is a problem because if you look at the, we look at the expenditure of the Department of Agriculture for about past 8 years. Out of that money, 100%, only 65% annually average ang nagagastos niya. That means there's a problem with the bureaucracy. The absorptive capacity of the bureaucracy is a major problem. So, accumulated neglect to. Wala tayong farm-to-market road, wala tayong irrigation, etc. noon. Nung nagkaroon ng COVID, it magnified the problem that we have a low productivity agricultural sector. The COVID-19 or Ukraine did not cause it. It might aggravate it, but the real cause is the accumulated neglect of the sector for about 30 years or so.
Okay, but in our last conversation, Fermin, when I last interviewed you, you already pointed or even went as far as saying that because of its inefficiency and its mendicancy-oriented policy of dole-outs and just spending all the money on rice production, we should simply close down the Department of Agriculture. Now, of course, that's not going to happen. But here's the thing, moving forward, sabihin na natin, okay, tabla na lang, wala nang away, wala nang no arguments. What should be done? Because in that particular column, I also pointed out that as much as we want to help the Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Animal Industry, the Bureau of Plant Industry, I found out from other columnists there is a gag order. No one speaks to the media. Pinaikot kami ng 2 linggo to get an appointment for an interview with one particular DA official who we wanted to help promote their project, and we discovered na, Cito, wag ka na magsayang ng oras mo, hindi magpapa-interview dahil pinagsabihan silang wag magpa-interview.
That's right. That yung gag order worries me because we are supposed to be under a democratic regime. There's freedom of information. Tapos yung gag order, and it's really extremely bad, particularly in a looming crisis like this. Because you cannot get immediate feedback on what is happening real time on the ground. So that means that if you don't have information, real-time information, you cannot come out with relevant or appropriate solutions to the problem. With that gag order, ang mangyayari dyan, hindi natin alam yung nangyayari, pero magpipintura sila na maganda ang nangyayari through social media or the usual PR ng mga agencies, di ba? Ang ganda ng namin. But that's not the reality because there is no way of validating or checking whether those arguments or claims are correct because you don't have data. The only data that you can see if those are real, what they claim that we're in a rosy picture or something like that, is the market prices, di ba? Yun ang magsasabi sa'yo, there's really a problem. Like for example, yung onion 400 pesos. So no matter what they say, that there's abundant supply of onions, the market tells you that there is a problem in terms of supply. Ngayon, tatanong mo sa akin, anong dapat natin gawin? Ang unang-una natin gawin, kasi talagang, I think from a strategic perspective, we need to stock those important commodities. And it's a short-term immediate measures that we need to plan the importation of those commodities. Especially now that there is a prolongation of the war in Ukraine and Russia. So kinakailangan any business, lalo sa business, you need to stock those commodities. So you need to ease up on your importation as a short-term measure. It does not necessarily follow that you are anti-nationalist or anti-farmer. It's just for survival. Kailangan mong gawin talaga yon. Secondly, ang kinakailangan mo talaga dyan, i-download mo yung activities sa local level. Kasi pag nariyan sa DA, they really don't know what this is accordance with what I said before. Baba natin yung action.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, Fermin, okay? Because insider ka dati, ngayon outsider ka na, okay? During your stint in the Department of Agriculture, did you get the impression or were you aware that the DA had the capability of downloading, cascading, or sharing information with the public? Kasi ngayon may gag order. Ang tanong, okay, binusalan mo ng yung mga tao mo, kaya ba ninyong ipaalam sa masa yung mga dapat nilang malaman? Because for instance, there is a new policy on the shipping or transport of poultry all over the Philippines. But that is not being properly disseminated. I still know a lot of poultry people who are not aware of the new system, and it lends itself to corruption. Does the DA have the capabilities, maybe through PTV4 or the national media, whatever, to disseminate the information, or nasa dilim din?
With the gag order, definitely there will be a lot of hesitance on their part to speak without the approval of the higher up. So ayaw talaga nila magsalita because as I noted before, parang there is that culture saying na baka masibastan sila, di ba? Because if they go overboard thinking that goodwill or good intentions will make it, with that gag order, siyempre they will just play the bureaucratic rules that make gag order. So noon talaga, we try to be as transparent as possible. We really connected with the media before. In fact, we even have a weekly press conference with the secretary because we wanted to have a free flow of information between the media, because we know, as you said, they can be partners in terms of the dissemination and in terms of extending this information for the good of the sector. You should not look at them as detractors. You should let them as partners in terms of promoting the development of the sector. Dapat ganon. That's a healthy attitude towards
and for the record, I don't know if you agree because you were in the middle. I don't know if you were in the middle of it. Para nakaalis ka na yata at the time. But for the record, the Sebastian incident where the sugar regulatory administrator was sanctioned or was reprimanded, that wasn't our fault. That was between Sebastian and Secretary Vic Rodriguez, Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez. So why include the media in these blunders?
True, but I would just like to collect the blunders there, because the point of Sebastian, he was right, because there would be a massive shortage, and we're seeing that. I said earlier, the market will tell you whether there is a supply shortage. And until now, magkano yung refined sugar? 100. And the SRA is claiming na bababa daw ng 90 na kasi pupasok na yung importation. Saka nagkaroon na ng harvest. 90? I mean, hello. It was 52 before. Ibig sabihin, utang na loob pa ng mamayang sambayang Pilipino na napababa nyo ng 90 or 80 pesos. Parang mali ata yung lohika. So in other words, tama yung desisyon na mag-import, kaya lang yung proseso ang naging problema doon sa So it was
but what happened? Sorry Fermin. What happened to Administrator Sebastian? Kasi some people say he was retained, just suspended, or he resigned. What actually happened to him?
He resigned. Well, first he was said to remove all these responsibilities. And then after that, he followed up, I think, his letter with the resignation, which today remains unacted upon. But that there is a suspension that was imposed against him, I think 60 days, which will end by November 27, if I'm not mistaken. So he has to report because his resignation was not accepted. I think in government, if you have a high position and the appointing power does not accept your resignation, you just have to report, because I think it will be a dereliction of responsibility if you don't. I just don't know what they're going to do with him, but he's happy. He told me that to accept for his resignation to be accepted. Okay lang sa kanya. But
apparently people are saying that Sebastian is vindicated kasi yun nga, as you said, the market is saying that the price of sugar remains high, and that is a result of the shortage.
Oh yes, because yan ang problema kasi, one of the major problems of the DA now is because they don't have the technical competence. Only a few people are there left with technical competence, and I don't know because of this. I think they're appointing a lot of OIC. Some of those technical peoples are being clothed. So, sinong marunong talaga ng technically dyan? Kaya, yung pinaka-head niya, pag pinausap mo sa interview, ewan ko kung ano sasabihin niya kasi it is the inadequate technical knowledge of agriculture. Because if you know what you're talking about, you will not be afraid to be interviewed kahit sino yan.
Okay, wait a minute. What are you saying? That there are now political appointees all over the Department of Agriculture without the required technical background?
Maybe the technical background was in the 70s.
Aha.
Iba na ngayon yun eh. We have an open trading regime. We are not under martial law, etc. etc. So, iba na yung dynamics ng agricultural sector. And what I heard from my UP Los Baños colleagues is that they have never been consulted up to now. The technically competent, the high-powered scientists here have not been consulted at all.
Yeah, I remember during your stay at the DA, during the time of Secretary Dar, there were consultations even with the private sector experts. Kasi like with ASF, as you know, I participate in the Fiestahan programs of BMEG, and I would hear about consultations between the DA and private sector doctors, scientists, and experts regarding the safety and security, biosecurity measures for ASF. So ngayon, wala.
Wala akong narinig because even the head of the BAI is floated. This guy is highly technically competent. He was in the FAO that runs the program on foot and mouth disease based in Bangkok. They were the ones who prevented the spread of that.
Wait a minute. BAI, what? What did you say?
Europe Animal Industry.
Oh, yung head?
He's now under float.
Dr. Morales?
Yes. So he told me that he intends to depart.
Hey, Dr. Morales was one of the competent individuals that I have been writing and trying to help get the programs across.
Scientist talaga, naintindihan niya pati microbial or something. Kaya mahirap mag-interview pag hindi mo alam yung sinasabi mo. Ako, I will face anybody in agricultural, economics, etc., or trade. Because I know what I'm talking about. Because I've studied it for the past 35 years or so. Ganon din si Dr. Sebastian. This guy is a multi-awarded rice scientist awarded by the Vietnamese government for his contribution to increase productivity in Vietnam. He practically was the architect of the rice program in Vietnam. And then you treat it like that.
But who? Okay, wait a minute. We have to go for a break, Fermin. But this is getting really interesting because I didn't hear about Morales and Sebastian na para na pala silang ginawang multo. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, let's pursue this discussion here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda, and we are having a very interesting conversation with a former Undersecretary of the Department of Agriculture, former USEC, Fermin Adriano. Fermin, I'm shocked. I am really shocked because akala ko naman nag-gag order lang sa DA and that everything remains the same. They are simply doing their job and everything quiet on the front, as they say. So the Bureau of Animal Industry Director, Dr. Morales, is already considering leaving the department because he's on floating status. And then you have Sebastian ba yun?
Yeah.
Former SRA Director Sebastian,
He's not SRA, he's Undersecretary.
USEC, sorry, USEC, Undersecretary Sebastian. He was placed on suspension and his resignation remains unaccepted. Sino pa? Sino pang natitira doon na mukhang may balak na umalis?
You can actually count on your fingers yung competent, like I can tell that the head of the field rice, I hope that he will not be will be a problem. Yung head ng field rice is a very, very technically competent guys. There's another one in the BSWM. There's another technically competent guys because he was ICRISAT. Yung BSWM is Bureau of Soils and Water Management. You know, a small irrigation type. He was the international body called ICRISAT. He was in India, but he was replaced. So these are technically competent. And there's the ATI head. She was replaced. Who was also the extension where help. So ganun eh.
Wait a minute. Ano yung ATI, Fermin?
Agricultural Training Institute.
So
Extension.
yun yung mga nagte-training ng mga extension worker, ng mga field workers, mga experts na pinapadala.
Trainers training. Yung mga municipal extension workers, sila yung magta-train dyan. Kasi yung devolve yan. Tapos yung sa Bureau of Agricultural Research, we have a new one. So makikita mo talaga na it is a problem because I don't know whether technical competence is the norm or whether it's loyalty that's important now.
Loyalty to whom?
Of course, the appointing powers. Ganun lang naman yun, di ba? So, in
because
agriculture...
there is a difference, Fermin, sorry. There's a difference between political appointees remaining loyal to the appointing power, and there is a difference when you talk about career executives and career technical experts. The ones that you are talking about are career, aren't they?
Some of them are career. I'll say so, like Undersecretary Sebastian.
Yeah.
The others were recruited because of their technical competence. So they're not CESO. So in other words, they can be replaced. The problem is that you need to put, because of the complexity, you engage in agriculture. Kala mo madali lang magtatanim ka. But actually, it's too complicated,
Yeah.
Hindi pala gano'n. I have to think about inputs, how much it costs, health of the animals or plants.
Nagbabalak na nga ako mag-re-enroll sa UP ng veterinary medicine. Sabi ko, I cannot go to Dr. Google. This is too complicated. I'm already talking about microbiology.
Kasi nutritional requirement, what are the combinations ng feeds mo to lower down your cost? etc. Down the ganun complicated. Kala kasi ng mga tao pagka agriculture may baboy ka, hindi ganun eh. It's already science-based. If you want to be competitive and efficient, you need to inject a lot of science now.
Yeah, but my question, Fermin, is yung bang replacements? Kasi, spoils, di ba? To the victor goes the spoil.
Yes.
The question is, has Secretary Bongbong Marcos, does he have access to equally competent or better experts than the ones that are now floating?
I think the president doesn't have time. So he does not know.
True.
Sino yung mga technically competent. You have to be in the business for quite some time to understand the strengths and weaknesses of those guys.
Yeah,
There are
but
guys who,
what about the senior undersecretary?
I've known him for quite some time. He's a UP Los Baños graduate. He's more on the operation side. Before,
Meaning,
during the Tanco years, operations, implementation, execution side. But the thing is that you can only execute properly if you have the proper vision, strategy, and an objective. Ano ba yung objective mo? Ano yung vision mo? Ano yung plano mo?
kumbaga, yung CEO ang magsasabi, this is the direction of Philippine citizen.
Yes.
Ikaw, Mr. Senior Undersecretary, ikaw yung GM, go roll out the projects.
Oo. Yeah, at tulad halimbawa, nung panahon namin, we are so conscious about inflation. Tinitingnan namin yan per region. Kasi ang tingin ni Secretary Dar, hindi lang production to. In the final analysis, it will be the cost of food on the table of the consumers regions. In fact, if you look at it, mas mataas yung inflation rate outside of Metro Manila kaysa doon sa mga regions. You will be surprised. Because yung supply sa Metro Manila marami, doon sa mga probinsya konti. So you have to understand that connection. But if you don't understand the connection, you're just so focused on production. Sasabihin, paano yung post-harvest losses mo? 30%. So bakit tumataas masyado sa merkado? Kasi tumataas sa merkado, hindi lang dahil sa traders yan. Kasi yung mga post-harvest production mo, wala kang dryer, wala kang storage, masama yung farm-to-market road mo. That adds tremendously on your cost.
So what is our situation for Min? Because you were saying, and I agree, to a limited extent, very controlled, importation will be necessary. It will be unavoidable kasi may shortage nga. Pagkatapos madadagdagan pa yung problema come December, nalalamon ng isang katutak ang mga Pilipino. So even adding to further shortage. But do we have the capability to produce and to replenish the required stocks locally? Or as others have criticized DAR and is criticizing now, puro tayo import na lang forever.
Kasi nag-import talaga tayo because of ang malaking driver niyan, yung increase ng population natin. When we reach 80 million, 85 million, if you look at the data, the importation just rose. Because our population growth rate is 1.9. The growth of agriculture is 1.1, 1.2%. So, ang laki nung difference between productivity and the growth of your population. So, no matter who you put there, that's a reality that he has to face right now. And we have institutional problems like, can we immediately increase productivity? It will take some time. Secondly, we have practically, sabi ng one of the columnists, we have practically put in the hands of small, relatively uneducated farmers the fate of our food security because of agrarian reform.
Correct.
Diba? Less than 3 hectares lang ngayon. Average is 1 hectare. How can they put in the necessary technology, capital, etc., with that kind? So we need some kind of production consolidation so that we can easily put in the necessary support services and the technology. Hanggat hindi natin na consolidation, of course, sasabihin nila anti-farmer ka, I don't think we will be able to increase productivity dramatically.
Have you guys even, or kasi nanggaling ka rin sa ADB, right? Or was it World Bank?
World Bank.
Okay, you were also with the World Bank and you've dealt with all these experts. Has anyone ever studied the state or the outcome of the agrarian reform program? Because the other day I was in Davao and that was the topic of discussion. All the guys there were in agri and they were saying, we started out with 5-hectare distribution to these farmer families. And every farmer family has about 3 to 5 sons. So those 5 hectares have gone down to 1 hectare each. And they will have children. They don't want to farm. They'll sell. And where are we? What has become? Meron pa ba talagang farmlands in that sense?
Marami ng study yan, kaya lang the politics is overbearing on us. Kasi kala natin, land to the tillers that will make our farmlands productive.
Mhm.
Marami ng study na nagpapakita na the bigger the farm size, the higher the productivity, whether it's in corn, rice, sugar. The only problem is that our policymakers and legislators are not listening because it's a populist concept. It's a vote-winning concept, idea, and therefore there's so much hesitancy. But we have been pushing for land production consolidation, not necessarily ownership, but just the production. But it can only be done at the local level. Hindi mo pwedeng gawin sa national yan. And with the collaboration of the local government.
But is it possible? Kasi you have international experience. Is there a country or have other countries in a similar situation bought back? Kumbaga, di ba, merong mga buyback program sa mga gobyerno all over the world. Meron bang nag-buyback ng agricultural lands because of it is a national security concern?
Well, merong production consolidation because it's a command economy. Sa China, sa Vietnam, they did it for Thailand. So they actually raised the ceiling, 7 hectares or something like that. Because there's a land size which is economically and financially viable for each of the commodity. Obviously, for rice, pag 1 hectare ka, gutom lang aabutin mo dyan kahit anong gawin mo, di ba? Kahit na napaka-productive mo. But in vegetables, 1 hectare is good enough for you.
Oh.
So, we were proposing that we should raise the ceiling of the hectareage limit from 3 to about 20 to 25. It's a decent land size that you can make, even for example, coconut become viable as an enterprise. Ganon. Allow the land ceiling to be raised, so that those who want to farm, like you, like me, or something, and which have the capital and knowledge, can really go to farming. Those who do not no longer want to farm, get out of the farming and do something else. And most of them actually are farmers. Do not want to farm anymore. That's the reason why they're sending their kids to school and become computers, nurses, etc., etc. So why do we need to force them to own the land and not sell it to those who want to own the land? That's the only way, because I think the biggest trigger for the development of the agriculture sector will be the private sector, yung mga maliliit. Unfortunately, yung middle class, agrarian reform killed the middle class farmers. Yeah. Because ang land ceiling mo, ang baba. So those who have the knowledge, small capital, those who want to farm, are not allowed by current system to do what they want to do, what they love to do. Those who do not want to farm, mabuhay ka muna ng 1 hectare kasi yan ang batas eh. So it's the overregulation.
Okay, but Fermin, marami kang contacts pa rin sa loob ng Department of Agriculture. What's the direction? I mean, ano ba sila? I'm sorry. We don't know eh. Are they doing anything? Are they going to do anything? Can we expect them to do something? Because the president has become our global ambassador. He's going to Beijing in January. He just came from Thailand. He just came from Indonesia, Washington. Sabi ko, huwag nyo nang asahan mag-DA secretary pa yan.
Yun nga kaya, I'm a little bit controversial when I said yung technically competent people are not there anymore. Yun nga ang aking hinanaing. Kasi ano ba plano natin? Kasi the immediate reaction, if you're a good manager, if you're competent, the immediate reaction is to come out with a plan on how to respond to this looming food crisis.
Yeah.
Anong gagawin mo? Nakakita ka naman ng dokumento? Have they shared it to the media and the public? These are the action plan? This is the immediate short-term
anong sinabi siya ni Mariano at ni Marites? I mean, wala na. We're already down to that level, di ba? If I cannot officially ask a official statement, I will have to rely on Mariano and Marites. What are they saying to you?
Well, and it's already been written by other columnists.
Yeah.
The staff are demoralized. Complete demoralization. And nothing is happening on the ground. Controversial is though, but it's a reality. Why? Because everything is so centralized in the office of the secretary that the regions cannot move without that signature. And it's the president who will have to sign those papers. Given the Sebastian case na nangyari. Di ba? Takot ka na kumilos eh. So, yun nga, in rice for example, nahirapan sila magbigay ng mga seeds, etc., etc. Kasi you need the signature of the secretary for that, or fertilizer, or whatever. You need, every time, you need this, even including trips nga, foreign trip. Because I was betting that before it goes to the secretary, it went to the secretary before. So it's centralized. If the body is signing it, so there's nothing moving, which I think is happening right now.
Nothing moving.
Not much is moving. Let me correct. Not much is moving. And with this gag order, you don't know what is really happening.
Is there even a proposed business plan on the table of the Secretary of Agriculture, meaning, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, these are the studies, the state of affairs, and these are our recommended plan of action for 2023 and beyond. Meron ba daw o wala din?
Meron nung panahon ni Yusek Sebastian, because before Secretary Darlep, the idea of Masagana 150 and Masagana 200, they were his ideas, and we tried to flesh it out, concept paper. May ginawa kami yan. The only problem is there is no follow-up in terms of the execution, the detailed program on how they're going to execute Masagana 150 and Masagana 200. For each of the commodities, we help. Kahit wala na ako noon, siguro yung patriotism na lang. We help in terms of coming out with policy briefs, 2 to 3 page. For poultry, for corn, or hogs, sugar, etc., etc. We came out with a set, more than 10, including insurance, agricultural insurance. And those were there. We submitted it, but it's really up to them to read and respond to them, to those policies. If they come out, including fisheries, if they can come out with one that can challenge the data that we presented, so much the better. Ginawa po namin. Kami noon I long told they're following it up.
Okay, so in the meanwhile, based on what you know, is it safe for me to say that in 2023, whatever we eat or whatever we buy for our tables will most likely be imported?
Oh yeah. Kasi di ba they came out with the pronouncement, you senior undersecretary, that there will be no importation of rice for the last quarter of this year. Di ba?
Yeah.
Sinabi niya, no. Pag tinignan mo yung datos, ito siguro kaya nagkagag order ng BPI, end of October, 3.2 million metric tons na ang pumasok. End of October, October is already part of the fourth quarter. The 3.2, first 10 months of this year, compared to last year, 2021, 1 million over tayo. Kasi nung 2021, the first 10 months, 2.2 million metric tons lang ang pumasok. Ngayon, 3.2 million metric tons. So,
okay.
despite the declaration that there will be no importation, pumapasok eh.
Yeah, so, that congressman I mentioned in my column na nabasa mo rin, he pointed that out. Cito, yes. The pork importations are excessive na nagsasara na yung ibang mga magbababoy. Poultry is the same and it will be worse, especially in December, January of this year. Can you confirm that?
Worse sa akin, Cito, yung smuggling eh. Kasi the tariffs are high, di ba? 40%. So, I would not be surprised that if there will be a lot of smuggling because the incentive is there because the profit is just too much. 40%, you'll not be able to pay that. So, makikita mo. In smuggling, I think that's the one killing us.
Okay, now, last topic na lang, okay? Because yun nga, yung naging conversations namin with planters, agriculturists in Davao, they're all exporting. sabi nila, yung mga fruits, mga kung ano-anong products doon sa Mindanao are being exported na to Malaysia, to Singapore, to Vietnam, etc. Now, can we rely on the private sector to take up or to make up for what the department or the government is severely lacking in? Investment-wise and, planting development.
Yeah, it cannot be. It cannot be helped because they are the trigger of development of the farm sector. Kasi they have more money, but the main problem across the board of this, except for pineapple and banana, yung supply. We have the best coffee. We've been awarded left and right on our coffee. But the main problem of those guys is really the supply. That means the productivity problem. And the government role there is to provide the research and development, varietal improvement, etc. That's where in the same way, I don't know whether you went to Malagos, yung cacao natin, di ba?
Yeah, I went to Malagos.
Winner yun but we are not putting in the necessary research and development. And that's the reason why when I was there, nag-aaway kami ng Bureau of Agricultural Research because they fund such esoteric researches when in fact, all you need to do, I was telling them, you look at the export winners and you focus your research and development on those commodities. Umuringa yan, malunga yan. How can we package it better? How we can increase the productivity? How it can be processed? Dapat ganun yung thinking mo. The government supports the private sector in its tribe. Di ba? Yun dapat yung partnership dun Kaso wala. Yung mango natin, yung pili, I went to Bicol. They have so much demand for pili because I think we're the only ones that produce that in the world.
Yeah.
Pero again, supply na naman yung problema. The productivity is the major problem.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time for but talking about pili, a neighbor of mine here in Lipa has 100 pili trees. And sabi niya, pare, pinanggagatong ko. Hindi ko alam kung ano gagawin ko doon sa bunga. Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Fermin Adriano, columnist of the Manila Times, as well as expert on agriculture and agriculture economy. Okay, thank you, sir. And hope to see you in my part of town.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll see you. I'll drop by. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. God bless. And that's Fermin Adriano, former Agriculture Undersecretary and economist on agriculture. Okay, let's now go to our closing blessing, and it's a prayer for the Philippines. It comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 11, verse 12. May the Lord, or it is a land, the Philippines, the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it from the beginning of the year to its end. Let's keep praying that in spite of all these revelations and problems, that the Lord will truly bless the Philippines. And let's pray for each other. God bless all of you. Please keep it here on One News.